Hey, I'm back. It's Nick Lane. I've been a little stressed lately. That's what the face mask is about, if you were wondering. It's finals week. It's finals month, really. May is just a hell of a month. It's gonna be Mother's Day tomorrow. There's big things planned for tomorrow. But also, more importantly, by the time tomorrow comes around, this review will have been uploaded. Season 2 of American Horror Story, Asylum, my review for that. It's wonderful, and it really just gets better from here. I'm going to push that out to y'all, and in the meantime, I'm just going to de-stress with these candles and this mask, and just try to make it to the end of the year, because this year's lasted so long. I'm ready to start this whole mini YouTube career. I work at Sonic, but this is a side hustle. The videos so far can't be monetized yet because I still don't have any idea how copyright works, but I'll figure it out. Without further ado, here is my review of Season 2 of American Horror Story, Asylum. Let's go. The writing of this season is said to be the best of all the seasons. Personally, I remember the writing being a little scattered at times, especially with the alien plotline. Ugh. The characters are strong for the most part, and the conflicts that occur in the story are too real and heartbreaking. A lot of the horror from this season isn't supernatural. Sure, there are demons, but that really isn't the scary part. The real horror is when our humanity is stripped away, when we accuse and torture others instead of understanding people. That is the real scary part. Much of the events that occur in Asylum really happened somewhere in the real world. Even Nazis were really hiding in plain sight during that time. Heck, the Santa Killer character, also known as Lee Emerson in the show, likely was inspired by Bruce Pardo, a man who killed most of his in-laws while they were at a party, all while wearing a Santa suit. He used a frickin' flamethrower to kill some of them. The writing in this season reminds us that even though these types of people are locked up, they still exist. And yet the administrators at these facilities lumped an innocent girl with microcephaly and an innocent reporter who happened to be gay in with the rest of the actually bad people. Beyond the gore of this season, that's what scares people. The plots in this season weave together very nicely. The two main villains are puppet masters. Thredson's infiltration of the asylum was a genius twist. Demonic Mary Eunice was pulling all the strings, and it was bittersweet to see her die because she was such a sweet character when she wasn't under the demon's spell. The thing I like about this season concerning villains is that there was more than one. Companies like Disney get us so used to seeing one villain and a binary of good versus evil. AHS makes sure to have several villains to demonstrate how anybody can fall out of line because there are influences all around us. I'm very appreciative of Ryan Murphy's stance on Disney acquiring Fox because Murphy promptly said, "I don't do Disney," when he learned of the acquisition. The complicated storylines and flashbacks in AHS are what make it a rabbit hole that you want to get lost in. The acting involved a lot of professionals this season. The test of quality this season was seeing if the actors can accurately portray mental illness. I was convinced, personally. I'm not an expert on mental illness, but what I saw looked realistic. You don't have to have a degree to know a chronic masturbator when you see one. The point is that even when the patients are standing idly by, they appear as if they're preoccupied by an overwhelming amount of thoughts. Or none at all. Jessica Lange's performance at the end of the season made me cry because I could see how her mind had been deteriorated by this cold bureaucracy and healed by love. Performances like this taught me that corruption doesn't happen overnight. Corruption happens when it's too painful to be human and it's much easier to be cold and calculated. The corruption of this asylum was the product of suppressing love. Going into the season, I didn't expect such a deep psychological study. I expected cardboard cutouts and mental illness tokens, but the thing about tokens is they only work at arcades, and in that analogy, the representation of mental illness would be used for nothing else but a game, and I'm so glad the actors rose above that. Unique to this season is James Cromwell. I knew him from The Green Mile, and I loved his performance as Arden. He's a gem in this anthology. I like Jessica Lange as this authoritarian nun, it fits her perfectly. Sarah Paulson is a really good protagonist. This is one of the two seasons where I feel like there's a definite main character. The other one is Hotel. And in this season, Sarah carries the role of a rational reporter very well. And she has said that Lana Winters was a more personal role for her. Naomi Grossman as Pepper is an amazing choice. I love the makeup on her, and I love the narrative of anti-prejudice she represents. I liked Zachary Quinto as Bloodyface, but I wish they would have done something different with his appearance to make him stand out from season 1. Also, Adam Levine was the first character we see in this season, so that was a thing. Grace had a very weird pattern of screen time. She was developed as a character, but then stopped when she got shot, and when she was resurrected, which frustrated me. We didn't get to see her personality shine through, and it was more of her just being a motherly character. I wish she would have developed a stronger constitution and personality rather than being Kit's loyal follower. I was also disappointed in how Wendy's character was treated. I feel like the audience would have felt even sadder about her death if we knew what she was like. Instead, she spends all of her time being a worrier, and don't get me wrong, her worries were freaking justified, Jesus Christ. But I also wanted to see what she was like when she forgot about all that for a second. But like Grace, she was killed off, but unfortunately not as lucky to get resurrected. Honestly, I'd resurrect Wendy over Grace any day. Sometimes the cinematography for this season would be disorienting, like when the aliens abduct Kit and flashing lights ensue with weird images in between. I feel that that was unnecessary. I like how sometimes the camera would take the position of the POV from the monster's perspective or Bloody Face's perspective. That builds tension through dramatic irony, and that's the best way to do it. There were a lot of tracking shots in this season due to the long hallway nature of the asylum, but I found those to be quite boring. Briarcliff Manor looks like it could be an actual asylum. At first glance, it looks like an orphanage. I'm used to asylums looking like chromatic cells with bright white lights everywhere, but this one was dark and dingy. It had more character in this way, though. Every building looked uniquely 60s. Dr. Arden's lab is a really good set piece because it strikes fear in the hearts of the viewers because they know the patient isn't safe. The record player is a beautiful set piece, not to mention a symbol. Overall, very good set design. The Dominique song is played over and over, and this subconsciously makes the viewer think of the concept of insanity because, after all, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting new results, which is what the Briarcliff administrators were doing by looping that song. It's a subtle but effective way of setting the atmosphere for the season. The sounds that the demonic forces make sound very cool and seamless. I remember the season having a lot of gore, and that gore was definitely very loud. Whether it be bludgeoning or slicing, the gore had very specific, unsettling sounds. The sound design that I really don't like this season comes from the end credits. The end credits song is not fitting at all, in my opinion. It was a little too dramatic, when I think the tune should have sounded more spooky or hopeless. Instead, the tune gives me a getting down to business vibe, which would suit something that's a little more fast-paced than this season. The Dominique song is so attached to this season that it might as well have been original music by the AHS crew, but it wasn't. It was performed by the singing nun, which I didn't know at first, but it's very fitting now that I'm making the nun connection. The nun outfits are iconic, and the cold concrete walls of Briarcliff are very set into my brain. I feel like some things didn't stick with me as much as they could have. I normally am super interested in killers and how they style themselves, but Bloodyface elicited no reaction from me. He didn't stand out in my mind. Zachary Quinto did a fine performance, but the Bloodyface persona wasn't something that people will think a lot about. This season as a whole didn't have as much character as the others. This is a very strong entry because it doesn't borrow anything from what was previously established in the lore. It only added to the lore. This season acted as a nice subtle setup for season 4. It introduced the idea of a musical segment, which was something that they had not yet done before in the series. This season proved that an audience could hit the reset switch and get invested in new characters even if they were played by mostly the same actors. And in the end, I was actually very reluctant to saying goodbye to these characters.